All right, so let's use a different technique to do similar things. So back in that basic folder, washed out beauty, I'm gonna use this one here. I'm gonna show you something different. So instead of protecting the layer, like I was doing, making a duplicate layer and protecting it, you could do that. That'll cover the whole picture. So for instance, if I, just doing it again, if I want to do a levels adjustment on this picture, convert it to a smart object, image adjustments and levels, right? I can do maybe a brightness and contrast on this picture because it was kind of blown out and kind of overblown with the highlights. So I can kind of tone some of that down by moving the shadow slider over, then moving this middle tone slider over. So things are not so washed out and, the exposure is not so high. Probably not that much, but, kind of cover the whole entire picture. Takes care of that. So again, before, after, right? That covers the whole entire picture. No problem. But what if I wanted to do something different? What if I wanted to just adjust her sweater? Just using that as the example. I want to adjust her sweater and not the whole entire thing with the adjustment. Well, first thing I would need to do is select the sweater. So I'm going to go to my quick selection tool here. It's just kind of my go-to thing to go after. And if I click and drag across the sweater, I can get the majority of the sweater picked out. I can hold down my Alter Option key to take out like this background underneath here and like her neck right there and take that out. Now the hair in the background, like see how the hair is flopping over the sweater. I eventually are gonna have to go and get rid of that. That would be going to that select and mask. I'm not gonna take the time to do all that right now, because I can do it later, and I'm gonna show you where the later comes in. So I can, make the adjustment, selection adjustment, get that done, get a rough selection. You really don't have to be super accurate because later you can go and be accurate with this. But now here's where the fun comes in. In your layers palette, at the bottom of the layers palette, there's a button that looks like a half and half circle. That half and half circle allows you to apply I'm sorry. The half and half circle allows you to apply the layer effects. Um, no, good. Uh, Hold on a second. Let me reset my brain. The FX allows you to apply the layer effects like drop shadows and such. The half and half circle allows you to apply the adjustment layers. Now, adjustment layers are basically those same adjustment filters that we were doing, image and adjustment, the same filters, almost all of them, just applied as an adjustment layer. Let me show you what happens with this. If I go to levels, because I'm going to use levels again since we've already been looking at that, and it will open up my properties panel. Properties panel wasn't open. Hold on. Properties panel. It opens up your properties panel and shows you the properties of that adjustment. So whatever the adjustment that you chose, levels, it shows instead of that panel, instead of that window popping up, it just gives it to you in your properties panel. What you'll also get is in your layers palette, you get a new layer called levels, because that's what I added. And look what it applies on there. It's the adjustment. That's the first thumbnail. The adjustment that comes through the properties panel. You can always double click on that to get to the properties panel if it's not open. And then you also have, look at that, a layer mask. And what can you do with a layer mask? I can double click onto the layer mask and it jumps me into the select and mask window and I can make adjustments. So when I'm ready to go and get the little strands of hair, out and I want to refine this mask so it's a little smoother around the edges, not such a hard cardboard cutout, I can go and do that. And again, before I hit OK to get out of this, I want to make sure the output is set to layer mask. So that way I can adjust, so that way it's applied to the layer mask that I currently are working on and not trying to make a brand new thing. So I got the ability to make the adjustments later. All right. So just bringing that part up. Right now, all I want to do is make the color adjustment. So making the color adjustment gives me the go back to the thumbnail. And in the properties panel, one of the things that happens in the properties panel is you get this little icon sometimes. It looks like a king's crown, which is really a histogram. That's really what it is with the exclamation point triangle on it. It's telling you that the histogram that you're currently looking at is not accurate. So if I click on this, it changes the accuracy of the histogram. So from what's already previously applied with the levels adjustment, this is what the new histogram looks like now. So these little spaces that you see and these little spikes that come up is coming from the adjustment that happened with the levels that I applied to originally. So that's what that looks like. Don't panic, don't freak out. That's just what it does. Now you can adjust locally in that one little area, the brightness and contrast, like I was doing before. You could switch over here to the red, green, and blue color channels and adjust that red, that green, or that blue value there to get a completely different look or enhance what was there and make your adjustments locally to this one area and this one area only. It's not applied to the whole entire picture. It's only applied to that one area where the mask is allowing it with the white and nowhere else. So local adjustments use an adjustment layer. Global adjustments, meaning applied to the whole entire picture, the whole entire file. Uh, you can do the adjustment layer if you want to without the masking feature on it, or you can just, you know, do the whole protected layer with the convert to smart object and then apply the filter to the whole entire picture. Whichever works best for you depends on which technique you use, the adjustment layers or the duplicating the layer and then doing the convert to smart object. And before anybody asks, I always duplicate the background layer. I never, you can convert the background layer to a smart object if you want to, and you'd still be able to get the same features and things like that. I just don't like doing that particular thing. I'd rather not do that to the background layer. It doesn't do anything damaging or whatever. It's just, I rather, my habit is keep the background layer protected, meaning don't do anything directly to it, always make duplicates and convert and stuff like that. So that's just my way of doing things. Okay, so other techniques, other adjustments that you can do besides levels to do things. Let's talk about those. I got about 14 minutes left, so we can kind of cover these things. Number one, if you hold down your controller, your command key, and hover over a layer mask, your cursor will turn into a hand pointing with a square on it. That allows you to, with a click, you can load the white areas of the mask as marching ants. So I can reload that marching ants back on. So that selection marquee. I can reload that in there if I want to. Now, changing color. If I want to change the color of her hair, in this case, well, her sweater, I want to change the color of her sweater. But this would work for her hair, her eyes, her skin tone, her lips, anything you want to change the color of. There are multiple ways, multiple filters you can use to do it. I'm just going to go through a couple of them. And I'm going to do adjustment layers for them just because since I have this selected area, I can do it easy through there with the adjustment layer. So um, you'll see vibrance, hue saturation, color balance, black and white, photo filter, channel mixer, color look. All of these will adjust the color. So whatever color was there in the picture, in that selected area or the entire picture, you're going to be able to change it based on whichever one of these you pick. So we already talked about hue saturation earlier, so I want to go to that one. So with hue saturation, in the panel that comes up through properties, let me move my properties panel over here. Hue means color. Saturation is the amount of color, and lightness is how bright or dark that color is. So if I move this hue slider to the left or right, it's taking the color that's already there in those pixels, and it's multiplying it by whatever value I settle on. So what I mean by multiply, it's not actually doing multiplication. It's actually increasing or decreasing the level value by this number that I settle at. So right now I'm at plus 107. So whatever the value that was there in those pixels, it went up 107 levels. That's what that means. If I go to the negative, it's going down that many levels and you're getting a different color. So you're not, so wherever the slider is, I'm not getting green and I'm not adding green to the color that's already there. I'm actually just increasing or decreasing the level value that's in those pixels currently and increasing or decreasing it by this amount. That's really what I'm doing. So I'm not, don't look at the slider or where you move that slider to and thinking that's the color you're getting. That's not what's happening. The saturation. I can increase the saturation so I get this kind of cartoonish Chernobyl type of glow going on, or I can decrease the saturation to get more of a reasonable color that probably this picture was that, if this picture was taken with that color sweater, it'd be more within that range, by dropping down the saturation. Or I can drop it completely down and I get grayscale, right? Version of the picture. So I can, adjust the saturation levels to how I want to realistically depict this color. And then the brightness level will make that color brighter. You can blow it completely out, or you can make it all completely black, or you could be subtle with it to get it a little bit lighter, a little bit darker. Again, the goal is probably to try to give it a realistic look. Like this, okay, this sweater was green when this picture was taken, so you're trying to get to a green that would make some sense, in the rest of the surrounding area there of the picture. You were coloring her hair, her eyes, her lips, her nose, her skin tone, anything could work with hue saturation and will work actually pretty well. Now, that's not the only way to do this. Remember I told you about the reset, like you can hold down the Alt or Option key and you can turn the cancel button into a reset button. Since you don't have a cancel button here, what you have at the bottom of the panel here, this properties panel, you have a button that looks like an arrow curling, and that button is your reset button. So you can click onto that and you can reset back to 0. Another thing you could do with this hue saturation is where it says master right here. You can hit this drop down and go after a particular color. Now, this can kind of be fun. In this picture, this pink outfit, this pink sweater she has on, is being controlled by probably the reds and the magentas more than the greens and blues and the rest of them. So if I go after reds, so I'm telling it to go after in this selected area, go after all the reds within this picture. If I start moving the hue slider around, now I'm adjusting the red value based on that hue slider. Okay, just the reds, not any other color. But I can also adjust the saturation value there as well, as well as the lightness value as well. So now I can make adjustments that way, going after just the reds. If I go after the magentas, I could probably get a little bit of adjustment. It'll be a lot more subtle. Yeah, see, it's almost giving nothing here. But let's see where the other color is. Let's see if I go after blue. Does that do anything? A little bit to the highlights that I can see because I'm just from what I can look at. Not much on any of the other ones. Usually, let's see what yellow does. Because yellow with these highlights here probably is a little bit of an adjustment, not by much that's visible. No. So mostly it's the reds. So that's an adjustment that could be done. Going after a specific color. I don't have a file. I didn't put that in there where I could show you a little bit better how that could work. But let me show you one that actually would work pretty well with this. This option here called colorize. Now what this does, I just reset everything. What colorize will do is that it will take away the color that was originally there, removes it. So now when it comes to this hue slider, wherever you move this hue slider to, that is the actual color that you're going to get. So if you were just trying to change the color of her outfit, this would probably be the least complicated way to make this happen. Check on colorize, and then wherever you move this slider, that's where the color is going to be coming from. The saturation level that happens applies based on the color value that was already there. It turns the saturation down to that level. So a different picture, you may have a different level that the saturation starts at, but it tries to make it realistically match what the color that was there from the beginning. So this way, whatever hue color you change it to, that would be the color of the sweater now, and that would be more realistically the color that would have, been there when the picture was taken. But of course, you can change that to be a lot brighter, more saturated, or you can make it darker or lighter with the lightness value. So any one of those three ways, you can go right into hue saturation and just start playing with the hue and the saturation and lightness value, or you can go up here to, pick from the master section or check on colorize here to change the color and see what you get as a result. One of those three ways will work with hue saturation for what you're doing. So there's that one. So that's hue saturation. Let's look at another one. Another adjustment layer for adjusting for color, wanting to change the color of something. Let's see, let's find a good one. Color balance. This is a good one. So again, going back to the color wheel with the opposite colors I was talking about before, bringing this up again. The opposite colors, the opposite of one color is another. Well, that's what this color balance does. It shows you the three colors, cyan, magenta, yellow, versus their opposite, red, green, and blue. And then you have your color tone. All right, your middle tones, your shadows, your highlights. Now, what you're going to be doing here is adjusting for the middle tones first, then the shadows, then the highlights. Um, More than likely, you're going to work in that order. Where you're taking one color out and adding another color in, and you're using that to make the adjustment to get the color that you're aiming for. You start with the midtones first, because that's the majority of where the color is coming from. And then your shadows and highlights, you can adjust accordingly. You could do the same adjustment or something different depending on what you're trying to get out of the color. And me, I would go with the middle tone first, then the shadows, then I go after the highlights. It's up to you about the adjustment, but this allows you to change the balance of the color, which will overall change the color of the picture. You can also use this for that color cast that I was talking about before with the levels, because I've used it before. I just prefer the levels adjustment for the color cast removal, and because I could do the brightness and contrast along with the color cast, but this would work good for that as well. You just have to go after the highlight, middle tone, and shadows separately to make sure that you get the right balance, to get the correct color that you want. And it works pretty well. Preserved luminosity is making sure that the adjustments you make don't adjust the luminosity, which is the I can't say that word right. The definition of luminosity. I'm trying to get the definition out. The definition of luminosity is how bright or how dark your image is initially, and you're trying to brighten it up or darken it down. And with changing these colors, the highlight, middle tone, and shadows, you run the danger without that preserved luminosity being on. You run the danger of it making everything way too bright or way too dark in the picture. It's kind of like that lightness thing within the within hue saturation. And preserved luminosity is trying to preserve that balance of that brightness level so it doesn't go over saturated or doesn't go overexposed or underexposed too fast on you with what you're doing. That's me trying to explain it. Hopefully that made sense. You may need to rewind that a few times when you're looking at this to understand the ramblings that I do sometimes. All right. Yeah, there you go. So I'm able to adjust color, hue saturation, color balance, levels. There's a few others that are there. I'll let you, explore on your own, because there's a few that you can apply this to. But just understand you have adjustment layers, and you can protect the layer with a protect the layer if you want to as well, and apply the adjustments to that. And you can have some fun with this color adjustment that you can